Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome to my lectures. I'll be taking you through a course unit called General Teaching Techniques. Its code is DES 1202. My name is Kabazira Dina, a lecturer at Mountains of the Moon University, and I am teaching diploma in education. I will take you through the course description for this course unit. This course unit introduces students to the general teaching techniques, emphasizing the silent futures of teaching and learning, the teaching profession, the teaching methods, instructional materials, organizational instruction, classroom management, and evaluation. The course equips students with skills on what to teach, that's the content, how to teach, the methodology, and teach with what? These are the teaching aids. And the course objectives are that I want my students to understand the overview of what is teaching, apprehend various methods of teaching, have an insight on instructional materials, how to use them, which materials to use, and also understand the instruction, understand the communication and its effectiveness. Those are our objectives. The learning outcome. If you looked at the objectives, they were basically knowledge-based. When we come to the learning outcome, we're into skills. So at the end of this course unit, I want students to be able to prepare for teaching and teach effectively. Teaching is not teaching unless the students have learned. So when the students learn, we can say teaching has been effective. At the end of this course unit, I want students to be creative enough, especially when it comes to teaching and learning materials. Most times we go to schools, we find people teaching purely with nothing, like a teaching aid or a learning material. It is very important that you guys, my students, will be able to be creative. Another learning outcome is that you should be able to select. Selection is one thing. Apply the suitable method for teaching. You can select a correct method, but use it wrongly. So at the end of this course unit, these are the outcomes I want you to acquire. We will go straight to our topic. Number 1, teaching. What is teaching? When you ask a person what is teaching, it's like an easy word. Everybody understands what is teaching. But if I asked you, what is teaching? Who is a teacher? There is a teacher and a professional teacher. These are the things that we'll be covering in this topic number 1. What is teaching? The meaning of teaching, and who is a professional teacher? We have Jesus Christ, who was a very good teacher, and then there is me also, who is a very good teacher. But we can say one was a spiritual teacher with a calling, and then me, I am a professional teacher. What makes us professional teachers? We will define teaching. Teaching is the process of imparting knowledge, skills, and values from one person to another. Teaching is the process, meaning it's not an event, it's a process of passing on knowledge from one person to another. Passing on skills and values from one person to another. And we're saying teaching is a process that facilitates learning. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot learn unless teaching has happened or teaching has taken place. Most of the things that we know, things that we do, is because someone took energy, took effort to teach us. The person who imparts knowledge and skills is a teacher, and the one receiving knowledge is the learner. That means there are two people here, the teacher and the learner. We can sometimes teach ourselves, yes, but usually we say teaching has two people discussing, interacting. That is the learner and the teacher. And I want you to remember that where there is no teaching, where there is no learning, there is no teaching. Most times we spend a lot of time teaching, but when learning hasn't taken any place, we say teaching hasn't happened. We can officially define teaching as a systematic process of transmission like electric transmission from one person to another. We can say it's a systematic process of transmitting knowledge, attitudes, skills in accordance with the professional principles. Like I told you, Jesus Christ was a very good teacher, but there were no principles or guidelines for him to teach, purely spiritually guided. For us, the teachers were guided by the professional principles. The teaching profession has got its own guidelines, the ones we call principles. So teaching is a systematic process of transmitting knowledge, attitudes, and skills in accordance with the professional principles. My mother is a teacher. She taught me, but she was teaching me just as a mother, but not as a professional teacher. We can again say that a teacher is a person who facilitates learning. I want you to be underlining these words. A person who facilitates learning by imparting knowledge, skills, and values to students or learners. Who is a teacher today? For a teacher today is a person who has undergone an approved training, like you, my students. You're undergoing a training in diploma in education. So after this training, you'll be called professional teachers. And the training has to take place in a recognized institution. Most times you've seen adverts when they're looking for a teacher, they say from a recognized institution. So a teacher is a person who has undergone an approved professional training in education at a college, university. He or she required to register with the Ministry of Education. As a teacher, for you to be called a professional teacher, you must register with the Ministry of Education and Sports and get a license to be able to teach the children of the country. I will give you my assignment. The difference between a teacher and a trainer. Who is a teacher? Who is a trainer? When do I become a teacher? When do I become a trainer? What is the difference between teaching and training? Ladies and gentlemen, in your own groups or individually, I want you to make a difference between a teacher and a trainer. The difference between teaching and training. With that, if you finish differentiating between a teacher and a trainer, we will come to the concept of teaching according to the traditional view. Originally, what was teaching? You know, this education, it's a modern education which came with the Europeans, we can say, the missionaries. They are the ones who started this kind of education, which we call the modern and Western education in Uganda. Before the advent of this Western education in Uganda, every adult member was a teacher. Every person who was not mad was a teacher. Therefore, teaching was a day-to-day activity and carried out by anyone. You look at an example, you look at a blacksmith. For him, he would train his children to become that. A mother would train the girls to become good housewives, good cooks, and take care of the home. That was a teacher, according to the traditional view. Teaching is giving knowledge, values, and skills to those who don't have it. Traditionally, we used to think that, until recently, we used to think that the learner is here to receive information from us, the teachers. For them, they don't have anything. We're giving them knowledge. According to the traditional view, we say that teaching is imparting, inculcating, dishing out, dispensing knowledge, and teaching was one way. Ideas flow from the teacher to the learner. I don't know if that is the case with you. You don't know anything, so the knowledge is coming from myself only. No. But we'll look at that in the modern view of teaching. A student is a receiver of knowledge and has nothing to contribute. I don't know if my students will agree with that kind of perception, but that is the traditional view, that a student just receives the knowledge and has nothing to contribute. You're calling it nowadays a learner or a teacher-centered kind of teaching. In the traditional view, we believed that the teacher's ideas, values, attitudes are valid. Even if I told you killing is okay, I'm a teacher, I've said killing is okay, my knowledge is valid. But those are the times when teachers were real teachers and people believed in them. Interpretation of teaching assumes that students have a blank mind. My students, you don't know anything? Your mind is really blank regarding the teaching methods, the teaching techniques. So I'm just putting it there. I'm writing something new onto your brain. For you, you have nothing. A teacher cannot be challenged or opposed. That's the traditional view. What the teacher says is correct. A teacher cannot be wrong and cannot be challenged. If you looked at the teaching in church, when a priest is teaching or a reverend is teaching, we don't raise up our hands in most of our churches. We don't put up the hand to ask, Pastor, what you have said is not correct. No. That is the traditional view of teaching. The teacher has to spoon feed the student, and therefore students are passive recipients. That students have nothing to contribute. They just give us their ears to listen, but don't give us the mouth to contribute. Passive recipients. Lessons are teacher-centered. We are talking about the traditional view of teaching. Lessons are teacher-centered. The students is to be spoon-fed. They are passive recipients. They don't contribute anything. They don't question the teacher. They don't disagree with the teacher. They don't discuss. Meaning in the traditional view, there is nothing like discussion. Teaching is purely from the teacher to the students. It is a one-way kind of teaching. That is how we can summarize the traditional view of teaching, that the learner has nothing to contribute, he's only receiving. Then we look at the modern technical view of teaching. For us in the modern, where we say teacher is the one who has undergone approved training. If you can teach without having undergone any professional training in a college or university, you can be a teacher, but will not say you're a professional teacher. And a university must be a recognized one. Mountains of the Moon University is a chartered university, is a public university, so it's a recognized one. When we qualify here, when we finish here, we'll be called professional teachers. The graduates of the institutions are capable of imparting knowledge. This is my learning outcome. At the end of this course unit, I want you to be able to impart knowledge. You must have the capacity to teach. You must have the capacity to pass on attitudes. You must be having capacity to pass on the skills to the learners, having gotten all these training. That is why we have this course unit called Teaching Techniques, the methods of teaching, how to teach effectively. You can't teach without effecting anything. If the students don't learn, then teaching hasn't happened. That is the modern, the modern technical view of teaching. Again, when we look at the modern and technical meaning of teaching, is that it's an attempt to facilitate. In the modern way, teachers are facilitators. We are supposed to cause change, not to create change. There's a difference between a teacher who causes change and a teacher who creates. For me, I'll facilitate. We work together as a team. You contribute. Then you become a good teacher. A teacher, therefore, teaching is therefore an interaction between two people. Unlike in the traditional way where I was saying it was one way, In the modern view, we say it's a two-way. The teacher and the student. However, the teacher is a little bit senior, and the learner is also contributing. That's the modern way of looking at teaching. Since there is an interaction, there is an exchange and sharing of ideas. When I'm in my class, for example, some time back, I had my students, they told me that if you're a teacher, you go to class, you teach, and you come out when you're feeling very tired. That means it has been a teacher-centered method of teaching. I didn't know about it. I knew there is a teaching method that is learner-centered and the one that is teacher-centered. So the students told me, if you go to a class and you come out when you're very tired, you'll get to know that it has been a teacher-centered kind of method. Teaching is a coordination of several activities by both the teacher and the student, intended to create change in the learner. Teaching is to cause and not to create change. This one I've already talked about it. It's to cause, not to create change. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we can have a break for this first session. Then we'll come back and continue with the modern and technical view of teaching. Thank you very much for listening to me. I've been your lecturer, Kabazera Dina, Mountains of the Moon University. Thank you very much. Check you in the second session.